From selling his soul and losing his humanity to accidentally killing a kid and trying to cover it up, here are all the times Bart's actions got him in trouble. We're kicking off our list with a classic. Bart sells his soul, an episode where Bart discovers that selling parts of his body for profit is not a great business. Bart pulls off a classic Sunday morning prank during church by swapping out the intended hymn for Iron Butterflies in Agata Davida, disguised as a religious tune, I Ron Butterfly. He pretty much gets the entire congregation to rock the house down, until of course Reverend Lovejoy realizes the 17-minute rock song is not actually holy music. By the end, the organist is unconscious, the congregation is exhausted, and Lovejoy is not amused. Determined to find the culprit, Lovejoy interrogates the kids. Bart stays quiet until Milhouse cracks under the imaginary pressure and rats his so-called best friend out to protect his soul from eternal damnation. As punishment, Bart is stuck cleaning the church organ, with Milhouse dragged in for being a snitch. Bart, annoyed, mocks Milhouse for believing in the whole eternal soul thing. Well, if he's that confident, he better put his money where his mouth is. Milhouse calls his bluff and offers to buy Bart's soul for $5. Bart pockets the cash, but things quickly get weird. Suddenly, automatic doors don't open for him, and even Marge can feel something is missing about her own son. Bart begins to suspect that maybe his soul was worth more than just a joke. Determined to get his soul back, Bart finds Milhouse, who now has the paper and is gleefully playing with it. But Milhouse isn't about to give it up without a hefty price, $50. Desperate, Bart makes a late-night trek to Milhouse's grandmother's house, where Milhouse is staying. But Milhouse has already traded the soul to Comic Book Guy. For what? Remember Pogs? No? Exactly. Good investment, Milhouse. Bart's journey continues as he camps out overnight in front of the android's dungeon, only to find out Comic Book Guy has sold a paper to an unnamed buyer. Dejected and soaked from the rain, Bart finally prays to God to return his soul. Miraculously, the paper floats down into his room. It turns out Lisa had bought it back for him. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Bart eagerly swallows the paper, literally taking back his soul. That night, he sleeps peacefully, pets curled up at his feet, and dreams of reuniting with his soul in a playful, victorious boat race. But no intentions of paying back his sister, I notice, which is kind of a mistake because he'll really need her in our next episode, which features Bart pulling a prank on Martin that goes really horribly wrong. It's dial N for Nerder. So Homer's out of shape, like really out of shape, even for Homer, which leads Marge to take charge of his diet. She ropes in a nutritionist, Betsy Bidwell, who introduces Homer to this substitution trick. Every time he craves junk food, he should eat a bell pepper instead, munching peppers non-stop, even blending them into beer smoothies at Moe's. But instead of losing weight, he gains 7 pounds. Meanwhile, Bart and Lisa head to Springfield Park and bump into Martin, who's digging for arrowheads. Bart gets bored and decides to prank Martin by planting Sideshow Mel's bone rigged on a string. When Martin goes to retrieve the artifact, Bart yanks the string, and the bone smacks Martin in the head. He stumbles off a cliff, lands on a ledge, and after a nudge from Lisa's stick, falls even further. The kids assume he's dead, and Bart is racked with guilt. But Lisa convinces him to keep quiet. Things spiral when Chief Wiggum announces on TV that Martin's body vanished after being eaten by a cougar. Well, let's see how Bart and Lisa can try to fix this mess. At school, a memorial is held for Martin, but Nelson smells something fishy. Yeah, Nelson. He's apparently a detective now. He investigates and finds evidence pointing to Bart's prank. Meanwhile, Bart and Lisa finish Martin's butterfly project in his greenhouse, when a cassette of Martin's lute music starts playing automatically. The kids freak out. Nelson catches Lisa admitting guilt, but then Martin reappears. Turns out his wedgie-proof underwear saved him, and he's fine. Okay, well, that's a happy ending, but now, the Simpsons have learned some brutal truths about themselves, right? Yup, the whole thing teaches Lisa that her innocent appearance is concealing a very twisted person, and Bart agrees. Killing a nerd? Not so fun. And all this because of one prank Bart dreamed up. By now, you'd think he would have learned from his mistakes and tried to avoid doing this again. Our next episode, Bart vs. Thanksgiving, sees Bart ruining the holiday and then embracing homelessness because of it. And at the dinner table, Lisa proudly shows off her handcrafted centerpiece, honoring women like Georgia O'Keeffe and Susan B. Anthony. Bart marches in with a turkey and immediately gets annoyed that Lisa's centerpiece is hogging all the space. But anyway, what is Bart's grand solution? Yup, chuck it straight into the fireplace. Lisa watches in horror as her masterpiece goes up in flames, and Bart just shrugs it off. He does not care for whatever nerdy thing she's into right now. He just wants turkey. Marge tries to console Lisa, who's devastated, but Bart? Nope, he's doubling down, convinced he's the victim here. Thanksgiving is about turkey, not about historical women. Marge warns him he won't get to eat until he apologizes, which only makes him more defiant. Furious, Bart sneaks out of the house with Santa's little helper. What follows is a series of misadventures. First, Bart tries to steal a pie cooling on Mr. Burns' windowsill, but ends up triggering a security system that sends the hounds after him. Hungry and desperate, Bart donates blood at a shady clinic for $12 and a cookie, only to pass out from blood loss. He's found by two homeless men who take him to a soup kitchen for Thanksgiving dinner. Bart feels smug. He's eating better than his family without having to say sorry for something he doesn't regret. Bart spots Ken Brockman doing a report on the soup kitchen and decides to take part. The Simpsons see it and panics, realizing he isn't actually in his room like he was supposed to be. Homer calls the police, and Marge starts blaming herself for pushing Bart too far. What else could she do? He did literally burn his sister's centerpiece. Meanwhile, Bart begins to rethink things. The kindness of the homeless men makes him realize how lucky he is to have a family at all. And also, I think he's probably grateful that he was saved by the two least creepy homeless guys in Springfield. Feeling guilty, he decides to head back home, but when he gets there, his imagination runs wild, picturing his family mocking and blaming him for everything. Unsure of how to face them, he climbs onto the roof instead. What better way to escape your problems? Lisa eventually finds him, and they have a heart-to-heart. She helps Bart see that it wasn't just about the centerpiece, it was about her feelings, which he consistently ignored and dismissed. Finally, Bart apologizes and they reconcile. The family ends the night with turkey sandwiches, a little battered but grateful, embodying the Thanksgiving spirit they lost earlier. Well, it's definitely better than spending the holidays with random homeless dudes, but then Bart isn't really someone who likes to be told what he should be doing. And when he does get told, he does the opposite and stages a fake kidnapping to get out of it. It's Pranksta rap. So Bart sees this commercial for a rap concert called Murder for Life, and he's all in. Lisa rolls her eyes, calling him a cliche suburban kid trying to act cool, but Bart doesn't care. He's hyped. He even buys his own ticket, feeling all grown up about it. Marge freaks out when she sees him rocking these gangsta type clothes and forbids him from going. Bart decides to go anyway because, hey, he bought the ticket, so he's practically an adult now, right? At the concert, Bart somehow ends up with the rapper Alcatraz's mic. Instead of chickening out, he spits a freestyle, mostly roasting Homer, and the crowd loves it. Why wouldn't they? A Homer roast works for basically every audience. Alcatraz is so impressed, he gives Bart a ride in his Hummer limo, and they even bump into 50 Cent. He clearly doesn't know how hard people have been trying to get him to stay in school for years. Bart gets home with a free jersey from Alcatraz, but overhears Marge and Homer ready to ground him into next week. Instead of facing them and being grounded, he hatches a scheme. He writes a fake kidnapping note, ties it to a rock, and chucks it through the window. The note says he's been kidnapped and they should wait for instructions. Somehow it works. Marge freaks out and Homer's mostly annoyed about waiting for more information. This kicks off a full-blown Springfield frenzy. Wiggum declares he'll solve the case, but everyone just laughs because, well, it's Wiggum. Meanwhile, Bart hides out at Milhouse's dad's crummy apartment. Feeling bold, Bart calls home, pretending to be the kidnapper, but the popcorn he's making gives him away. Wiggum traces it to Kirk, who gets raided, arrested, and blamed for the kidnapping. Nice job, Bart. Ruined another life successfully. Bart returns home a hero. Wiggum is promoted, and Kirk is weirdly happier in jail. Everyone wins, except, for the truth. But then again, I guess Springfield has never really been a massive fan of that. Lisa gets suspicious and finds Bart's jersey in the treehouse. Realizing the truth, she wants to expose him, but Homer burns the evidence because Hollywood's already paying for a movie about Bart's ordeal. Lisa and Skinner dig deep, even getting proof from Alcatraz's concert footage. Wiggum tries to shut them down, but Alcatraz has the ultimate fix: a house party. Everyone celebrates, Lisa's still conflicted, and Bart walks away with zero consequences while Homer cannonballs into the pool. And basically nothing is resolved. Interesting choice. This is one of only a handful of times Bart has actually managed to get away with his chaos. Usually he pays the price, like in Love is a Mini Splintered Thing, when he loses what could be the love of his life because of his own selfishness. So Bart kicks off the episode reflecting on his terrible luck with girls, especially Mary Spuckler, one of Cletus's many children. But it turns out that Mary's back in Springfield after her acting career bombed. She got trapped in the world of commercials, which apparently counts as failure in Springfield. Now she's living with her family again, and she and Bart quickly rekindle their romance. But surprise surprise, surprise, Bart screws it up. He's way more into his video games than into Mary, even after Lisa warns him to stop taking her for granted. Things fall apart when Mary suggests they take a break. Bart doesn't think much of it until he finds out she's already moved on with a Brazilian boy. Meanwhile, Homer and Marge are mid-argument, and Bart jumps in to side with Homer, claiming that women are impossible to understand because they never say what they actually mean. Marge kicks both Bart and Homer out of the house, which seems like bad parenting, but at least he has his dad. The two end up at the Brokewood Apartments, a glorified man cave for guys who've been booted by their wives. At first, it's all fun and games for Bart and Homer as they settle into their new lifestyle, but the novelty wears off fast. Along with the other husbands, they decide it's time to win back their families. They need someone to take care of them again. The plan? British romantic comedies. Inspired by cheesy rom-com tropes, they invite the women over for a big dramatic serenade to the tune of Ode to Joy. Yes, it's about as bad as we could have imagined, but it actually works for most of the couples, except Bart and Mary. She's still with her Brazilian boyfriend and tells Bart they never work out anyway. By the end of the episode, Bart's scrolling through social media when he spots Mary's relationship status, single. Seizing the opportunity, Bart sends her a message, "I miss you." And that's where we leave him, hanging on hope. But this is not the only time Bart sabotages his shot at love. In the wandering Juvie, he strikes up an interesting new dynamic with a fellow young Juvie offender, and then pays the price. On a typical family outing, the Simpsons visit Constantine's department store. While everyone else gets into their own shenanigans, Marge with beauty creams, Homer mistaking a dressing room for a restroom, Bart finds a barcode scanner and pretends it's a gun. Surprisingly, this does not go where you think it's about to go. The store manager explains it's for registering wedding gifts, and Bart's devious mind kicks into overdrive. He registers himself and his fake bride, Lotta Cooties, for a wedding and scans all the gifts he wants people to buy. Naturally, Springfield falls for it. Bart even throws a fake wedding, locks his guests in a tent to pass out, and makes off with the gifts. It seems like Bart's scheme is a success until Chief Wiggum catches him red-handed. Bart tries to bribe him with the stolen gifts, but Wiggum only accepts cash bribes. So now, Bart is out of luck. Instead, Bart gets arrested and ends up in front of Judge Constance Harm, who sentences him to 6 months in juvie. Bart tries to weasel out of it by blaming Homer for unrelated crimes, but no dice. A tearful Marge tries to hold on to Bart as the police take him away, only for them to swap him with Ralph. Marge doesn't want Ralph, which is kinda sad because he would have been a way better son for her. Anyway, juvie is rough. Bart gets bullied constantly, and even his favorite cartoon, Itchy and Scratchy, is edited to be non-violent, which is pointless. While looking for a safe spot, he meets Gina Vendetti, a tough girl from the female juvie next door. But Bart's more preoccupied with surviving juvie to care about some girl threatening to cut his little Barts off. Things escalate when Bart gets paired with Gina for a prom. Even though he's kind of attracted to her, she has something else in mind. She sees it as a perfect chance to escape and drags Bart along since they are handcuffed together. The two go on the run, bickering the entire way. Gina tries to pin the escape on Bart, but he starts to see she's more complicated than she lets on. When they finally find someone to remove their cuffs, Gina admits that she has no family and her tough exterior cracks. Bart tries to comfort her, but they end up fighting until the cops arrive. But no, in a surprising twist, Gina confesses it was all her idea, clearing Bart of a further punishment. Back in her cell, Gina is stunned to find the Simpsons waiting to share a family dinner with her, showing her the kindness she's been missing. And like everyone else that does something good for the Simpson family, she will never be seen again. That tends to happen when the Simpsons get involved. After all, they are the famous ones. But our next episode, Bart Gets Famous, sees Bart becoming a megastar in his own right through pure clumsiness, and comes to regret it. Bart starts his day thinking a school field trip will be a blast, but his excitement quickly fizzles when Mrs. Crabapple bitterly guesses they're headed to the Springfield box factory. There's only so much box folding you can take. The tour is excruciatingly dull, but Bart can't sit still and decides to sneak off. The class realizes Bart is missing, and Skinner calls Homer in a panic. Thinking Bart has been crushed by a giant box-making machine, Homer shows up terrified, but there's no sign of Bart. Actually, Bart meets Krusty the Clown at the studio. Krusty is fuming over a missing Danish, which Bart secretly ate, and sends Bart to steal one from Kent Brockman. Bart delivers the Danish, winning Krusty's approval and landing himself a gig as Krusty's assistant. Bart's thrilled until he realizes being Krusty's lackey is all grunt work and no glory. He gets bossed around 24/7 and barely gets his name in the credits, so no one believes he's really helping Krusty. Just as Bart's ready to quit, Krusty offers him a single line in a sketch. Bart flubs it, wrecks the set, and nervously blurts, "I didn't do it." The audience erupts in laughter. Boom! Bart has a catchphrase, and honestly, that's all he needs. Suddenly, Bart is a star. His "I didn't do it" bit blows up with merch, appearances, and relentless fame. Lisa warns him that fads fade, and Bart starts worrying he'll become irrelevant. Whenever he tries to show depth, the world rejects it. That's all people really want from him. He's no longer a human, he's a performing monkey. After his whole nightmare of washed-up fame, Bart considers quitting, but Marge insists he's making people happy. When the audience stops laughing, Krusty drops Bart like he's worth nothing. Welcome to show business, kid. Reflecting on fame's fleeting nature, Bart finds comfort in the box of keepsakes Marge saved from his "I didn't do it" days. But then the family and, well, anybody else start throwing out their signature catchphrases. Lisa, unimpressed by these one-dimensional character traits, decides to storm off in protest, but Lisa is smart enough to know it. Bart doesn't really notice when he's in trouble, like when he becomes the latest helper to the mob in Bart the Murderer. Bart's day starts as a disaster. Homer steals his cereal prize, his dog eats his homework, and he misses the school bus. By the time he trudges into school late and soaking wet, things only get worse. During recess, his pants rip, and to top it all off, he realizes he left his field trip permission slip at home. While everyone else gets to tour the fudge chocolate factory, Bart's stuck helping Principal Skinner with boring office chores like licking PTA envelopes. On his walk home, Bart wipes out on his skateboard in front of a shady building and stumbles into a mafia hangout. That's where he meets Fat Tony, Springfield's smooth-talking mob boss. Bart wins Tony over by picking a winning racehorse. Bart even aces the next test, mixing a perfect Manhattan. Yeah, Bart has some skills, who would have thought? Next thing he knows, he's hired as the mafia's new bartender. Bart doesn't realize these guys are actual criminals. He's just excited about the cash and attention. Things spiral from there. Marge gets suspicious and asks Homer to check out Bart's job. Predictably, Homer doesn't catch on and gives his clueless stamp of approval after the mobsters deliberately let him win at poker. At school, Bart's new mob persona lands him in trouble when he tries to bribe Skinner and gets detention for the attempt. This makes him late for work, where Fat Tony has hyped him up as the maker of Springfield's best Manhattans. The next day, Skinner disappears, and Bart starts having nightmares that the mafia killed him. Panicked, Bart confronts Fat Tony, but the mobsters deny everything. Before Bart can figure out what to do, the police raid the hideout and arrest everyone. At the trial, things get even worse. Fat Tony and his crew pin everything on Bart, claiming he's the real mob boss. It looks grim until Skinner dramatically bursts into the courtroom, explaining he'd just been trapped under a pile of newspapers in his garage. Furious at Fat Tony for throwing him under the bus, Bart quits the mob life for good. Naturally, the whole fiasco gets turned into an over-the-top TV movie, and Homer's only takeaway is to complain about their lack of Hollywood royalties. There's a place for all of the Simpsons, but not all of them embrace it. In separate vocations, Bart and Lisa end up in places they really don't expect. Turns out, Bart might actually be good at something. At school, Bart and Lisa take these career aptitude tests, and the results are surprising. Lisa's devastated when her results say she's destined to be a homemaker. Homer's all proud while Lisa spirals into an existential crisis, which nobody actually cares about, apparently. Determined to prove the test wrong, Lisa talks to a music teacher who crushes her dreams even further, pointing out that her stubby fingers will hold her back. Meanwhile, Bart's off on a ride-along with the police, living his best life. He even ends up helping them catch a criminal. Lisa, heartbroken and angry, dives headfirst into rebellion. She quits playing sax, ditches her good grades, and starts hanging with the school's bad crowd. When Bart starts thriving as a hall monitor, busting kids left and right, and even restoring order to the school, Lisa doubles down on her rebellion. She suggests trashing Principal Skinner's precious Puma statue, instantly earning her new friend's respect. Suddenly, Lisa's the queen of chaos, making snarky comments to teachers and ditching schoolwork entirely. She even sneaks into classrooms to steal all the teachers' edition textbooks, leaving the entire faculty floundering, because unsurprisingly, all of the teachers are morons who know nothing. Bart, now the school's top enforcer, leads the charge to find the missing books. When he discovers Lisa's behind it, she confesses to all of her rebellion. She's not just acting out for fun, she's lashing out because everyone's crushed her dreams, and the test labeled her future as dull and uninspiring. Bart could rat her out, but instead, he takes the fall. So, with Bart back in detention, Lisa slowly gets her act together. She returns to her saxophone and her studies, while Bart, writing lines on the chalkboard, listens to her playing outside. It's a bittersweet sibling moment. Bart stuck being Bart, Lisa rediscovering hope. Turns out Bart's chaos might have saved her dreams after all. He's not always a brat.